Well, I think he made a very serious approach to get at the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. He certainly knows, and his advisors know what needs to be done there if you still want to have a two-state solution. He had very difficult partners there in Israel and in the Palestinian territories, particularly in Israel with Prime Minister Netanyahu. And I think he gave up too early here when he saw resistance coming from the Israeli Prime Minister against a strong approach that would have tried to solve the issue in his first term. Now he has a second chance here, even though I think the circumstances will not be much better, and Israel may actually lose the option of a two-state solution and go into a much more complicated conflict in the future about how to deal with one state between the Jordan Valley and the Mediterranean. Iran, I also think that President Obama did make some serious efforts. We have recently heard about the Obama administration's attempts to get into a bilateral dialogue with the Iranian leadership. That is not what the Iranian leadership wanted to do, apparently. Now they are waiting for the US elections, quite similarly as in the past we have been waiting for Iranian elections, always hoping that with a re-elected president or with the next president, it might all be better. I really do think that there is a window of opportunity here for not only the Obama administration, but for the international community to get something solved through a bilateral high-level dialogue between the United States and Iran in the next 6 months or so if Obama is re-elected. So that would mean as long as there is still the same president in Iran who, whatever we think of him, certainly wants to have some success in his international relations, wants to get out of the isolation, and he knows he can only do that if he gets some acceptable solution to the nuclear file, to the nuclear problem with the rest of the world, and the solution goes through the White House. So direct high-level talks between the US and Iran could, of course, be much easier if Obama is re-elected, and he wouldn't have to fear domestic resistance to such kind of talks. As to the wider Arab world, of course, Obama made an approach to reach out and to gather understanding in the Arab world before the Arab Spring started. And that was a different situation. He still dealt with the old regimes, tried to ask the old regimes to become reformers, a little bit as the Europeans had done for many years, not very successful, and was caught by surprise, as much as the Europeans and as much as many of the Arabs, by the uprisings and revolts in Tunisia and Egypt and other places. I think the Americans did shift their position quickly enough, particularly on Egypt. That wasn't very much to the liking of some of the other regimes, certainly not to the liking of Mr. Mubarak, but not even to the liking of King Abdullah in Saudi Arabia, for example. But I think he did the right thing here, and I guess his broader approach here to supporting transformation in countries that have chosen a path of transformation is one that actually we Europeans can deal very easily with, because it is basically also our approach. We know our limits. We know that in the end it's the choices of the people in these countries, what kind of political regimes they are having. And I guess we have all given up the idea that we should pick winners in Egypt or in Tunisia. So if people vote for deputies and governments we wouldn't necessarily vote for, that's their choice. And we should judge these governments by what they're doing, whether they can solve their socioeconomic problems, whether they can keep the newly reached political freedoms, and not judge upon their party program or ideology from the beginning. Syria, the last point you mentioned, I think we are at a loss together. We have learned from Afghanistan and from Iraq, and to an extent also from Libya and the regional repercussions of the Libya war, that a military intervention would certainly help or certainly make it possible to topple the Assad regime, but it would not necessarily bring peace to the country, and it would not solve all the problems. So our common efforts now are about trying to strengthen the opposition, make it credible, make it also credible for those people in Syria, particularly, who are afraid of any change and who mistrust, who have or distrust the opposition. I would say that we all don't have the golden solution here, or don't know what the key to a real success would be, as military intervention is not what we want to do, even though the opposition asked us for it. As a protection zone would only protect the people who are in it, and the opposition seems to be not yet united enough to actually make the difference it needs to make in the country.